I once sat in a meeting with Israelis where everyone talked at once. I thought it was chaos. My Israeli colleague later told me it was the best meeting she'd ever had. Same conversation, completely opposite interpretations. Let's explore handling interruptions.
Okay, I need to hear about this meeting. Everyone talking at once?
It was my first week working with our Tel Aviv office. Video call, about 6 people on their end, 3 of us in London.
And?
Within 2 minutes, it was complete chaos. Everyone talking over each other, interrupting mid-sentence, multiple conversations happening simultaneously.
Sounds stressful.
It was! I kept trying to wait for my turn to speak, but my turn never came. Everyone just kept going.
What did you do?
I essentially gave up. Just sat there. My British colleague looked equally lost. We exchanged "what is happening" looks, while the Israelis had what seemed like 3 parallel debates.
And they thought it was productive?
Great meeting, according to them. Lots of ideas, everyone engaged, very energetic. Meanwhile, I thought I'd witnessed corporate anarchy.
Did anyone explain what was happening?
Yes, thank God. My Israeli colleague, Maya, pulled me aside after. She said, "You seem quiet today. Everything okay?"
What did you tell her?
I said I couldn't get a word in. Everyone was talking over everyone else.
She looked genuinely confused and said, "That means they're interested. If we weren't interrupting, it would mean we don't care."
So, interrupting is engagement?
In Israeli culture, yes. Overlapping speech means you're excited about the ideas. Waiting politely for someone to finish completely means you're bored or disagree but don't care enough to argue.
That's the opposite of how I was raised.
Same. British culture is all about taking turns. You wait for someone to finish, then you speak. Interrupting is incredibly rude.
American culture too. Well, mostly. We're taught to let people finish their thoughts.
But Americans do interrupt sometimes, right?
We do, but we apologize for it. Sorry to interrupt, but we acknowledge it's rude even as we're doing it.
Very polite rudeness.
Exactly. We know it's wrong, but sometimes we can't help ourselves.
I think American culture is in this weird middle ground. We're not as strict about turn-taking as British or Japanese culture, but not as comfortable with overlapping speech as Mediterranean or Latin cultures.
What's it like in other Latin cultures?
Oh, Brazilian meetings are wonderful chaos.
Tell me.
I worked with a team in Sao Paulo for a few months. Conference calls were this beautiful, energetic mess. People building on each other's ideas, talking over each other with enthusiasm. Lots of yes and energy.
So, like Israeli culture, interrupting is participation?
Similar, but with different energy. Israeli interrupting feels more combative, like intellectual sparring. Brazilian interrupting feels more collaborative, like jazz improvisation.
That's a great distinction.
Right? Like Israelis might interrupt to challenge or debate. Brazilians interrupt to add enthusiasm or agreement. Same behavior, totally different emotional tone.
How do Brazilians handle it when someone actually needs to finish a thought?
Volume. You just talk louder until people hear you.
So it's a competition?
Kind of, but a friendly competition. And if you have something important, you can usually signal it. Stand up, raise your hand, say "one moment." People will generally give you space.
But you have to assert yourself.
Right. You can't just wait quietly hoping for a turn. That turn will never come. What about the opposite end? Cultures where interrupting is really unacceptable.
Japan is incredibly strict about this.
How so?
In Japanese business culture, you not only wait for someone to finish speaking, you wait several seconds after they finish before responding.
Why the pause?
It shows you're considering what they said thoughtfully. Jumping in immediately suggests you weren't really listening, just waiting for your turn.
So American-style quick responses would seem disrespectful.
Potentially, yes. It can read as impatient or dismissive, like you had your response prepared before they finished talking.
Which Americans often do.
We absolutely do. We're forming our response while the other person is still talking. I'm doing it right now.
See? What happens if you interrupt someone Japanese in a meeting?
I did this once. Early in my career, working with Tokyo office. Senior colleague was explaining something. I had a question, jumped in with, "Sorry, quick question."
And?
The silence was deafening. Everyone just stopped, looked at me. He finished his sentence very deliberately, then paused, then addressed my question with this extremely polite but clearly annoyed tone.
Did anyone tell you what you'd done wrong?
My British manager pulled me aside later, explained that interrupting a senior person mid-sentence is really disrespectful in Japanese culture, especially in front of others. You make them lose face.
So it's not just rude, it's hierarchically inappropriate.
Exactly, right. It's not just wait your turn politeness, it's respecting the social structure. Junior people don't interrupt senior people, period.
That must make meetings really long.
They can be very structured. People speak in order of seniority sometimes. Everyone gets heard, but it takes time.
Which probably makes Israelis and Brazilians crazy.
Can you imagine? The cultural clash would be spectacular.
Israeli walks into Japanese meeting. Why is everyone so quiet? Don't you care about this project?
Japanese person in Israeli meeting. Why is everyone being so aggressive?
Perfect cultural nightmare. What about Southern US culture? I feel like there are specific interrupting rules there.
Oh yeah, Southern politeness has rules.
Like what?
You don't interrupt elders. You don't interrupt women. In theory, though men do it anyway. You say, "Excuse me" or "Pardon me" before interjecting. And you apologize profusely if you accidentally cut someone off.
So it's formal politeness but with hierarchy.
Exactly. It's not as strict as Japanese culture, but there's definitely a respect your elders and betters thing happening.
What happens if you violate it?
Well, bless your heart. You just interrupted your grandmother mid-sentence. Were you raised in a barn?
The polite insult.
The Southern specialty. What about gender dynamics with interrupting? That seems like it varies by culture too.
Oh, this is huge and often ugly. Studies show men interrupt women way more than the reverse, especially in Western workplaces.
I've experienced this so much. You're making a point in a meeting, a male colleague interrupts, everyone listens to him even though he's literally repeating what you just said.
The rage that induces.
And then you're stuck. Do you call it out and seem difficult, or let it go and watch your ideas get credited to him?
I think the interrupting women thing is somewhat universal, but it plays out differently in different cultures.
How so?
In more egalitarian cultures like Scandinavia, there's at least awareness of it. People might actually call it out or actively work to prevent it.
Whereas in more hierarchical cultures?
It's just accepted. Women are expected to defer anyway, so interrupting them isn't even seen as rude. It's maintaining order.
That's bleak.
It is. Though I will say, Israeli culture is interesting. Women seem to hold their own in the interrupting game there.
Really?
Yeah, Israeli women interrupt just as much as men in my experience. The culture values assertiveness regardless of gender.
That's something at least. What about age? Do younger people interrupting older people have different rules?
Absolutely. Almost universal rule. Young people shouldn't interrupt elders, especially in Asian and Latin American cultures. The hierarchy is strict. I remember my Kenyan colleague telling me about growing up. Children didn't speak unless spoken to when adults were talking. Interrupting an adult would get you removed from the room.
That's intense.
But it teaches respect for hierarchy and wisdom of age. You listen and learn from elders. You don't challenge or interrupt them.
Western culture has kind of lost that. American culture especially has shifted to kids should speak up and share their opinions, which has benefits, but also creates entitlement sometimes.
Okay, let's hear from the toddler on this complex issue.
Right? There's a balance between respecting kids' voices and recognizing that adults actually do know more about some things.
What about interrupting in personal relationships, like with partners or friends?
Oh, that's its own thing entirely.
How?
I think in close relationships, interrupting can actually be affectionate. like finishing each other's sentences, jumping in with related stories, building on ideas together.
Right, the collaborative interrupting feels different from competitive interrupting. My partner and I interrupt each other constantly, but it's because we're excited, not because we're dismissive.
How do you know the difference?
I guess tone, intent? Like, are you interrupting to redirect to yourself or to add to what they're saying? Yeah, yes and interrupting versus actually interrupting.
Exactly. Perfect distinction. Does that work the same across cultures, though?
Probably not. I bet in high context cultures, even affectionate interrupting might be unwelcome. Like in British culture, even with close friends, you still tend to wait for pauses. Constantly interrupting would feel chaotic, even if well-intentioned. We do love our orderly conversations.
Your boring, predictable conversations.
They're civilized.
Sure they are. What about phone calls versus in person? Does that change interrupting norms?
Oh, phone calls are so much harder because you can't see body language or facial cues. I've had so many awkward phone pauses where both people start talking at once, then both stop, then both start again.
The overlap dance.
And different cultures handle this differently. Americans tend to just power through. Whoever's louder wins. British people apologize profusely and defer to each other.
No, you go. No, after you. I insist. 5 minutes of apologizing before anyone actually speaks.
What about video calls? Has Zoom changed anything?
I think it's made interrupting more difficult, actually.
Why?
The audio delay, the mute, unmute button, the inability to use subtle body language to signal you want to speak, all of it makes natural conversation flow basically impossible.
And you can't do the overlapping speech thing that works in person. On Zoom, it just becomes garbled noise.
So cultures that rely on interrupting as engagement are at a disadvantage.
Exactly. Israeli and Brazilian teams probably struggle more with Zoom than Japanese teams, who are already comfortable with structured turn-taking.
Though the raise hand feature might actually help the quieter cultures.
That's true. It gives people a way to signal without verbally interrupting. More egalitarian in some ways.
So what's the actual advice here? How do you navigate interrupting across cultures?
Honestly, it's so context dependent.
Right, like if you're in an Israeli meeting, you need to interrupt or you'll never speak. But in a Japanese meeting, you wait patiently or you're an asshole.
I think the key is paying attention to how others are communicating. Are people overlapping? Then jump in. Is everyone waiting for clear pauses? Then you wait too. And if you're leading a multicultural meeting, maybe set explicit norms?
Like what?
We're going to use round-robin speaking, or please hold questions until the end, or feel free to interject with thoughts as they come up. Make the rules explicit so everyone knows what's expected.
That's actually really smart.
Because otherwise you'll have half the team thinking the meeting is going great, while the other half thinks it's chaos or oppressively quiet.
Different languages of engagement. What if you're the person who never gets heard because your culture is quieter?
Then I think you have to stretch. Meet the louder culture part way.
But that's not fair to ask them to change their whole communication style.
No, but it's about survival in that context. Like if you're in a Brazilian meeting and you wait for someone to explicitly call on you, you will never speak.
So you have to adapt to the dominant communication style of the room.
Ideally, the room would adapt to include everyone. But realistically, as an individual, sometimes you just have to adjust.
That's kind of sad, though. Loud cultures dominate by default.
It is, which is why good facilitators matter. Someone needs to actively manage the conversation to ensure quieter voices get heard.
Make space for the interrupters and the waiters. Hold on, I think Matthew was trying to say something earlier. Matthew, what were you thinking?
Thank you for that, by the way.
It works!
You know what's interesting? None of this is really about rudeness. It's all about different definitions of engagement.
Exactly. Interrupting says, I care in one culture and I don't respect you in another. Same action, opposite meaning.
So the key is understanding what communication style signals engagement in each culture and not assuming your way is the only way or the right way, even though it feels like the right way because it's what you grew up with.
Exactly, that's the challenge. Our instincts say, this is rude or this is boring. But really, it's just different. And usually, people are trying their best to communicate effectively in the only way they know how.
Right. The Israeli interrupters aren't trying to be aggressive. The Japanese quiet waiters aren't trying to be passive. They're all just engaging in their cultural language. And sometimes that language doesn't translate well.
But understanding helps.
It does, even when it's still frustrating.
Very frustrating.
But at least you know why.
Thanks for joining us on the Etiquette Enigma. Remember, interrupting isn't universally rude, and waiting your turn isn't universally polite. It all depends on the culture.
So next time someone talks over you, maybe they're not being rude. Maybe they're just Israeli.
Or Brazilian. Or New Yorker.
Meanwhile, if someone sits in silence, they're not bored. They might just be British.
Or Japanese. Or Finnish.
But seriously, pay attention to how others in the room are communicating and try to match that energy. And if you're facilitating, create space for both styles.
Make room for the talkers and the thinkers.
See you next episode.
Where we'll probably interrupt each other constantly.